Welcome back to Poorly Educated Today in the News, where the world keeps handing us enough chaos to fill a tractor trailer with fireworks, raccoons, and unpaid gas receipts. It is April 14th, 2026, and the United States is out here trying to run a war, a culture fight, an economic panic, and a reality show reunion at the exact same time. We got missiles in one hand, a phone full of conspiracy memes in the other, and somehow we are still pretending this is all normal adult supervision. The whole country feels like a pickup truck going downhill with 3 different dashboard lights on, and the driver is saying, "No, that smoke smell has always been there." So let us climb into this mess boots first and see which part of the barn is on fire the fastest. Segment 1. Hormuz, hotheads, and the world's most expensive traffic jam. The biggest mess on the map is the war with Iran, which has now shifted from bombing runs to a naval blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. Because apparently, when diplomacy fails now, we just move straight to squeezing the planet's fuel hose like a kid twisting the garden spigot. After the Islamabad talks collapsed, the United States decided it was time to choke off Iranian shipping without technically calling it a total closure, which is kind of like saying you did not lock the front door, you just stood in it with a shotgun and a clipboard. This strait is one of those tiny places on a map that somehow controls giant pieces of everybody's life. And now it has turned into the world's most dangerous toll booth. Iran says it is piracy. The United States says it is strategy, and the rest of the world is standing there checking oil prices like a man watching hail ruin the truck he still owes money on. That is the problem with global power games now. One fight in one bottleneck, and suddenly your groceries cost more in Indiana than a bad decision at a county fair. And let me tell you, once oil starts getting nervous, every other part of life starts acting like it drank 3 energy drinks and forgot its password. The administration seems to think Iran will fold if enough economic pressure gets piled on. But history keeps showing that cornered regimes do not usually respond by calmly filling out surrender paperwork. They respond by getting weird, lashing out, and making shipping lanes feel like a haunted hallway nobody wants to walk down. China is glaring, Europe is hedging, the UN is wringing its hands, and America is out there acting like this is a controlled operation when it feels more like somebody trying to defuse a bomb with a leaf blower. It is one thing to launch a military operation. It is another thing to turn the entire global gas tank into a bar fight and then act surprised when everybody's wallet gets punched in the mouth. Segment 2. Gas pumps, grocery aisles, and the stagflation barn revival. That blockade is not just a foreign policy move. It is a direct kick to the shin of the economy. Because once energy spikes, everything else follows it uphill like ducks chasing a bread truck. The IMF is already cutting growth forecasts and warning about inflation, which is economist language for saying, "Congratulations, your paycheck is about to feel decorative." Folks do not experience macroeconomic contagion as a line on a chart. They experience it as standing in a grocery aisle whispering, "How did hamburger buns become luxury architecture?" This is the kind of mess that brings back 70s talk, stagflation talk, that ugly old family ghost where prices go up, growth goes down, and everybody starts blaming whoever is closest to the television. Nothing says modern American greatness like paying more for eggs because 2 governments on the other side of the world cannot stop acting like they are in a revenge sequel. Now the White House is trying to calm working people down with the no tax on tips push, which makes for a nice photo op when you hand a delivery driver a $100 bill under the Oval Office lights. But a flashy tip on camera does not magically stop fuel from creeping into every cost in the system like ants through a screen door. Sure, some workers benefit, and nobody in their right mind hates a tax break. But if your rent, groceries, and gas are all rising like they got drafted into the same marching band, then that relief starts to feel like throwing a juice box at a house fire. That is the deeper problem here. Symbolic politics moves fast, but inflation moves mean. The administration is selling this like a lifeline, but for a lot of folks, it looks more like being handed a coupon while the cashier changes the price tags behind your back. Segment 3. No kings, no patience, and Congress falling off the trailer. All of that pressure has started boiling over in the streets, and now the No Kings protest movement is showing up across the country with the kind of scale that makes politicians suddenly rediscover the phrase, "We hear the American people." Millions have been turning out because they are tired of seeing tax dollars fly overseas while everyday life at home gets more expensive and more ridiculous. When folks believe the government can find money for missiles faster than it can find common sense for housing, health care, or groceries, they stop asking politely and start bringing signs. That is not some fringe mood either. A lot of the public does not even understand what the administration's endgame is supposed to be, which is not great when the plan involves warships and fuel shocks. You cannot tell people to trust the process when the process looks like a raccoon fighting its reflection in a vending machine. Meanwhile, Congress is wobbling like a folding table at a church potluck, because now you have scandal-driven resignations on both sides at the exact moment the country supposedly needs stable adults in matching shoes. One lawmaker goes down in misconduct allegations, another retires after an affair scandal, and suddenly the institution that is supposed to oversee war, budgets, and national priorities looks like it cannot even oversee itself. That kind of collapse matters, because when the legislative branch is weak, all the pressure piles onto the executive branch, and that is how you end up with more improvisation, more ego, and more late-night posting instead of actual governance. The grounded truth under all the comedy is simple. People lose confidence when the people in charge keep behaving like a high school student council after somebody spiked the punch. If the public is already mad about war and prices, watching Congress shed members like a mangy dog sheds fur is not exactly going to inspire patriotic calm. Segment 4. Trump, the Pope, and the Holy Posting War. As if war and inflation were not enough, the president somehow found time to pick a public fight with Pope Leo XIV, which is the kind of sentence that sounds fake until you remember what year we are living in. The Pope criticized the war and warned against this whole delusion of omnipotence vibe, and Trump responded like he was subtweeting a neighbor over a fence dispute instead of sparring with the head of the Catholic Church. Then came the AI-generated image drama, with Trump depicted in glowing, messianic style, which landed about as softly as a piano dropped in a prayer circle. Even some conservatives and religious supporters looked at that and said, "Buddy, maybe reel it in before the lightning starts shopping for addresses." It takes real talent to turn a geopolitical crisis into a culture war fistfight with the Vatican, but this administration treats restraint like it is a vegetable side dish. What makes this so wild is not just the insult circus, it is the timing. When you are trying to sell military resolve, manage economic panic, and keep your coalition together, maybe do not alienate millions of Catholics by posting stuff that looks like a youth pastor's worst nightmare. The White House tried to wave it off as a joke, or a misunderstanding, or a doctor image, which is the kind of explanation that only makes sense if everybody involved has recently hit their head on farm equipment. And this is where the tangent loops back, because modern politics is no longer content to just fail quietly on policy. It has to do a costume change and pick a spiritual slap fight on the way out. The administration keeps burning political capital on spectacle, while the actual machinery of government is already overheating. And that is like arguing over bumper stickers while the truck is drifting toward a corn pond. Segment 5. Tech panic, media meltdowns, and the nation doom scrolls through dinner. Back here at home, the mood has gotten so strange that even Silicon Valley is catching fire in literal ways, with Sam Altman targeted in an alleged arson attack at his home. That is not just another crime story. That is a sign that the country's tech anxiety is mutating into something nastier, where AI panic stops being online yelling and starts becoming real-world violence. We are living in a time when people think machines might steal their jobs, rewrite their culture, confuse their kids, and maybe flirt better than they do. So some folks are reacting like the future itself egged their house. Add in threats against Supreme Court justices, messy clashes between local and federal authorities, and random extraterritorial strikes overseas, and you start to realize America's security picture looks less like a system and more like a junk drawer full of loaded staplers. Everybody is tense, everybody is armed with opinions, and nobody trusts that the adults in charge are using the instruction manual. At the same time, the media ecosystem is melting into its own puddle, with outlets fighting over ethics, conflicts, speed, outrage, and whatever half-true image is already bouncing around the internet before lunch. The country is absorbing war updates, protest videos, AI scares, celebrity nonsense, sports headlines, streaming fluff, and guerrilla birthday news all in the same mental bucket. No wonder people are ricocheting between panic and distraction like a pinball machine possessed by cable news demons. 1 minute it is a blockade and a possible global energy shock. The next minute it is draft picks, cancer news in sports media, viral internet mobs, and somebody yelling about a pop star hating children. That may be the most grounded observation of the whole show. This country is not just polarized, it is overstimulated, and an overstimulated nation will laugh at a joke, miss the warning sign, and then ask why the smoke alarm sounds political. In conclusion, the United States is trying to juggle war in the Persian Gulf, inflation at home, mass protests in the streets, resignations in Congress, religious culture warfare online, and rising domestic security threats. All while acting like this is merely a busy news week. The blockade strategy may squeeze Iran, but it is also squeezing the global economy, and regular Americans can already feel the consequences every time they pull up to a gas pump or stare at a grocery receipt like it personally betrayed them. Public patience is thinning, institutions are creaking, and the people running the show keep wandering off into side quests involving AI images, media feuds, and ideological slap fights. It is a strange kind of leadership where every new crisis gets treated like both a national emergency and a campaign commercial. So for now, the nation keeps rolling forward, half superpower and half demolition derby, praying the wheels stay on long enough for somebody to remember governing is supposed to be more than vibes, volume, and very expensive consequences.